Today I'm answering your questions about lenses, Canon, Nikon, third party, and even a question about teleconverters. Let's get to it. Kevin says, "Hi, I shoot rugby union. Outdoors in full sun, I have a Nikon D3S. I do this for a hobby, so I am paying for the equipment. My question is, I use a Nikon 300mm f4 lens, but would like longer reach. For the price, I am leaning towards the Tamron 150 to 600mm, but is the Sigma that much or any better as the price is double?" Well, here's the deal. The Tamron is a variable aperture zoom that is at f5 at 150mm and f6.3 at 600mm. Why is that a problem? For one, you'll need more light to get the same shutter speed versus shooting at f4 with the Nikons. Also, almost any DSLR is going to struggle between f5 and f6.3, while the 300mm f4, it gets more light in, which makes the focus tracking much happier. The Tamron is half the cost of the Nikon. We're talking about $2K for the 300mm f4 and $1K for the Tamron zoom. Which to get though? For lenses this expensive, I'd try to rent or borrow one or both to assure that you get some seat time to determine which one is best for you. RJ asks, what are your thoughts about the Sigma 18 to 35mm f1.8 lens? Well, I've not used it. Knowing me, if I were shopping for that range, I would get the old Nikon 17 to 35 f2.8 or the 14 to 24 f2.8. I talked in one of my last Q&A videos about how I use my Nikon V1 with an ultra wide, often as an alternate camera, so that I don't need to commit the main body that I bring with me to the wider angles. Why? I occasionally like to click off an ultra wide angle shot or two, but based on my style, I feel a bit restricted if I only have a wide or ultra wide lens on my main body. Next question is from Derek. I have a D5300 and Nikon 18 to 140 lens. Please advise on a replacement lens with a focal length of 17 to 50 and a constant aperture f2.8. I was looking at the Sigma 18 to 35 1.8, but felt it was a short range and a heavy lens for the D5300. Love your approach and wealth of knowledge. Cheers, Derek. Well, hi, Derek. I reviewed the Tamron 17 to 50 f2.8, and it had its advantages in that it shoots at f2.8 through the 17 to 50mm range. The images were sharp, but it has the build quality of a low to mid-range Nikon, like this older 18 to 70 DX lens. Despite the size, weight, and price, if aperture counts, I use the Nikon 17 to 55 f2.8, even on my D5000. When aperture doesn't count, I use this almost ancient 18 to 70 f3.5 to f4.5 DX lens. It's a decent aperture at f4.5 on the long end and is sized well for a camera like the D5300. The shots aren't particularly sharp, but it is fun and easy to walk around with. And when I'm having fun, I'm getting shots that I like. On to Ken. Question, what is your opinion of teleconverters? Well, it's all about time and place. I've got the 1.7x teleconverter that pairs well with my 70 to 200. I don't use it all the time, and it's a bit soft at wider apertures. If the lighting is right so I can get to f8 and I want to squeeze every last bit of detail out of that giraffe's head or adolescent zebra or squirrel monkey, I bring the teleconverter and fire away. If you're in lower light, the sacrifice of losing the widest apertures and softness at the wider apertures available create a situation where you can get sharper images without the teleconverter. Todd says, seems like every Canon user's favorite lens is the 70 to 200. Is the Nikon as good? DxO seems to think the edges are bad. If so, what would I get for my Nikon to compete? I shoot with the D70-100. Thank you, Todd. There's a few different versions of the 70 to 200, including a newer and less expensive f4 version that Nikon sells. And Canon has an f4 as well. I've never fired mine at test charts or looked at DxO ratings for it. I just shoot with mine, and if my technique is spot on and I've composed a good shot, I come away with a good shot. Glenn asks, I am looking for a good Nikon close-up lens for coins, flowers, and details. Thank you. A lot of Nikon users start and end their macro lens buying process with the 105mm micro lens. I have the older AF version, but there are newer models. It's not something that I use every day, but when I do, I've always been pleased with the results. And my last question is from Jason. Nikon 80-400, better or worse for wildlife than the Tamron or Sigma 150-600? I don't have either. If someone out there has used both, leave us all a note in the comments. That's all for today. Thanks for your questions, guys. Keep an eye on my Facebook page or subscribe to my YouTube channel to find out when my next Q&A video is up.